Mastering Subject and Verb Agreement, a guide for intermediate students. As an intermediate student, you may find yourself struggling with subject-verb agreement. This can be a challenging concept to grasp, but it is essential for clear and effective communication in English. In this guide, we will break down the basics of subject-verb agreement and provide tips for improving your skills. What is subject-verb agreement? Subject-verb agreement refers to the grammatical rule that a subject and its verb must agree in number. This means that a singular subject requires a singular verb, while a plural subject requires a plural verb. For example, she walks is correct, while she walk is incorrect. Why is subject-verb agreement important? Subject-verb agreement is important because it helps to ensure that your sentences are clear and easy to understand. If your subject and verb do not agree in number, it can lead to confusion and make it difficult for your reader or listener to follow your meaning. Tips for mastering subject-verb agreement. Identify the subject. Before choosing a verb, it's important to identify the subject of your sentence. Remember that the subject is the person, place, or thing that the sentence is about. Check for number. Once you have identified the subject, determine if it is singular or plural. This will help you to choose the correct verb form. Pay attention to irregular verbs. Some verbs do not follow the standard rules of subject-verb agreement. For example, to be is an irregular verb that can change form depending on the subject. Be sure to learn the correct forms of these verbs. Use context clues. Sometimes, the subject of a sentence can be difficult to identify. In these cases, use context clues such as prepositions or articles to help you determine the subject. Practice, practice, practice. The best way to improve your subject-verb agreement skills is through practice. Look for examples in your reading or writing, and try to identify and correct any errors you find. As an English learner, you may have noticed that subject-verb agreement can sometimes be a tricky concept to grasp. However, by understanding some common patterns, you can begin to improve your skills and communicate more effectively. In this guide, we will explore some of the patterns in subject-verb agreement that you should be aware of. Singular and plural nouns. One of the most basic patterns in subject-verb agreement is that singular nouns require singular verbs, while plural nouns require plural verbs. For example, the cat sleeps uses a singular verb because the subject cat is singular, while the cat sleep uses a plural verb because the subject cats is plural. Irregular verbs. Some verbs in English do not follow the standard patterns of subject-verb agreement. For example, the verb to be changes form depending on the subject. For example, I am, you are, he or she / it is, we are, you are, and they are. Other irregular verbs include have and do. It is important to learn the correct forms of these irregular verbs in order to use them correctly in sentences. Collective nouns. Collective nouns are singular nouns that refer to a group of individuals. Examples include team, family, and audience. When using a collective noun as a subject, the verb should be singular. For example, the team is playing well and the family is going on vacation. Subject-verb inversions. In some cases, the subject and verb may be inverted, such as in questions or sentences beginning with there is or there are. In these cases, it is important to remember that the verb should still agree with the subject in number. For example, is the cat sleeping? And there are many cats sleeping. Indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns, such as everyone, someone, and no one, are always singular and require singular verbs. For example, everyone is here and no one likes spiders. Countable and uncountable nouns can present a unique challenge when it comes to subject-verb agreement in English. In this guide, we will explore the differences between countable and uncountable nouns and how they affect subject-verb agreement. Countable nouns. Countable nouns are nouns that can be counted as individual units. They can be singular or plural, and require different subject-verb agreements depending on their number. For example, singular, the dog runs. Plural, the dogs run. Uncountable nouns. Uncountable nouns, on the other hand, are nouns that cannot be counted as individual units. They are always singular and require singular subject-verb agreement. For example, singular, the water is cold. When referring to an uncountable noun, it is common to use a quantifier to indicate a specific amount. For example, some water is cold. A glass of water is cold. Agreements with both countable and uncountable nouns. In some cases, a noun can be both countable and uncountable depending on the context. For example, the noun coffee can refer to a single cup of coffee, countable, or the beverage in general, uncountable. When using these nouns, it is important to pay attention to the context and use the correct subject-verb agreement. For example, singular, the coffee is hot. Plural, the coffees are hot. Quantifiers are words that describe the quantity or amount of a noun in a sentence. In subject-verb agreement, it is important to use quantifiers correctly in order to determine the correct subject and predicate. In this guide, we will explore how to use quantifiers to determine subjects and predicates in subject-verb agreement. Quantifiers for countable nouns. When dealing with countable nouns, quantifiers can be used to describe the number of objects or people. For example, singular, a cat is sleeping. Plural, 2 cats are sleeping. In the examples above, A and 2 are quantifiers that help determine the subject, cat and cats, and the predicate, is sleeping and are sleeping. Other common quantifiers for countable nouns include each, every, many, and few. Quantifiers for uncountable nouns. Quantifiers for uncountable nouns describe the amount or quantity of a substance or material. For example, singular, some water is in the glass. Plural, 2 glasses of water are on the table. In the examples above, some and 2 glasses of are quantifiers that help determine the subject, water, and the predicate, is in the glass and are on the table. Other common quantifiers for uncountable nouns include a lot of, much, and little. Indefinite quantifiers. Indefinite quantifiers, such as some, any, and no, can be used with both countable and uncountable nouns. They are used to describe an unspecified quantity or amount. For example, some cats are sleeping. Some water is in the glass. Any cats can play. No water is in the cup. In the examples above, the quantifiers some, any, and no help determine the subject and predicate in the sentence. In conclusion, quantifiers play an important role in determining the subject and predicate in subject-verb agreement. Whether dealing with countable or uncountable nouns, paying attention to the correct quantifier can help you communicate more effectively in English.